Might as well get things going right now, and we'll start with the first section, where we've been, and a statement of positions on both sides. And Betty said it shouldn't be ladies first, so we'll start with her.
In the past, the traditional romantic relationship between man and woman, what I call the macho and the earth mother, the classic romantic couple that we think of in our society, the football player and the cheerleader, the truck driver and the cocktail waitress, the driving businessman and the airline stewardess. These were our classic male-female romantic relationships, the kinds we all yearned for, the kind we all envied when we saw it in others. The macho, so to speak, and when I use the word macho, it's going to be a shorthand term I'm going to be using during the day to refer to classic masculine stance of being independent, rational, dominant, decisive, sexually animalistic, highly active. The earth mother is the flip side of that. Everything you can say about the macho, if you want to define the classic feminine woman, or the earth mother, it's the polar opposite. She was soft, she was gentle, she was non-competitive. Sexually, she was a Madonna. She wasn't horny. She was basically agreeable, basically submissive, eager to, easy to control, mellow, and passive. In other words, whatever the macho was, the feminine woman was the opposite. Whatever the feminine woman was, the macho was the extreme opposite. And our classically romantic couples were the extremes in those cases. The highly dominant man and the adoring submissive woman. The very independent man and the fragile dependent woman. The very rational problem-solving oriented guy and the basically soft, confused, emotional feminine woman who said, "You're so smart and you know all the answers." So these were, masculine and feminine were polar opposites. They were also psychological defense systems. I'll explain to you as we go on in the next few minutes. Psychological defense systems that balanced each other, reinforced each other, rigidified each other, and in the end, destroyed each other. Actually, the traditional, and this to me is a treasure of insights, because as a young graduate student in psychology, I was fed all of the mythologies about what it meant to be a normal man and what it meant to be a normal woman and what a healthy relationship was. But if you look at the basic components of masculinity and femininity, they make men and women enemies of each other. They build in frustration, rage, and guilt into the relationship. Indeed, femininity in general is a rage-producing phenomena, and I think that the first stage of feminism was rage. The rage of Kate Millett's, Germaine Greer's, Marilyn French's, the Ms. Magazine people. I call it Earth Mother rage. It's the rage that builds up in a dependent relationship of any kind. It's very interesting right now what's going on with the Iranians, because I think that all of a sudden, Americans are just going bananas over this incident over there. And I think partly, to me, it's again, it's rage that's being unleashed now for a couple of years of the dependency that has been building up on the part of Americans. And now this is being used as, in the same way as the blacks used a particular issue. The different, when you're feeling oppressed and in a dependent relationship, rage accumulates, and at any given point, it's liable to explode at even the slightest provocation. Masculinity and femininity are also lockstep dances. On a psychological level, there are no victims and there are no oppressors on a deeper level. Indeed, were masculinity not such a rigid defense system, and I'll explain that a little further on, men would have started this gender revolution, not women. Because, indeed, were men not so self-destructive, were men more self-caring, they would have recognized long ago that they are, in this time and place in our culture, in much more serious hazard than women are. And when I say that, that's from every survival, growth, life statistic. shows an overwhelmingly negative disparity in the direction of men and women. In 1920, there was a 1-year difference between male and female longevity. 1970, that had gone up to almost 8 years. By the year 2000, it's going to be close to 10 years. Men contract all major diseases leading to death practically at significantly higher rates, from cancer, which is 45–50% higher, to pulmonary disorders, circulatory disorders, which is several 100% higher. Suicide rate for men is several 100% higher. Childhood emotional disorder rate is even more pathetic than all of that. Autism, hyperkinetic disorders, dyslexia, stuttering, schizophrenia, all show incredibly disproportionate rates. Child guidance clinics and psychiatric hospitals for children are primarily clinics and hospitals for little boys. And so had men had any capacity for self-awareness and self-care, they would have long ago taken note of all of this. Indeed, not only would have done that, but they would have embraced feminism as heralding the growth of the woman from a child state to an adult state, and opening the way for moving men from a machine state and an aggressive time bomb to a more playful, intimate human person. The traditional feminine conditioning leaves women in the psychological state of being children. Because basically, if you look at what feminism means, it means the repression and denial of aggression, the repression and denial of assertion, the repression of autonomy, and the repression of sexuality. She took the role of the reactor, waiting for the man to make the move, and therefore inevitably felt victimized and used on the one hand, except what feminists have seem to ignore all too often is how they continually, and still today, reinforce and unconsciously support in men the very dominance, autonomy, emotional control, aggressiveness, and sexuality that she comes to hate the man for on the other hand. Gail Sheehy recently was quoted as saying, "Weak men are not in demand. Power is an aphrodisiac." If I was going to be a male liberation sloganeer, if there was any T-shirt manufacturers out there, if you want to get in on it early, one of my T-shirt slogans would say, "A man with no job is like a woman with no breasts." And in fact, last week I gave a talk for the YPO in Palm Springs. And these are all guys who are under 40 who are super achievers. It's the Young Presidents Organization. You got to be under 40, you got to be president of your company, and the company's got to be doing at least $3 million of business. So, now these guys pay the same kind of a price for their position as women do for having beautiful bodies, which is that's all you see, that's all women see, that's all anybody sees when they talk. They don't see the person anymore. All they see is the power, the status, the symbol. So I suggested for them the opposite T-shirt, which was a man who is president of his company is like a woman with big breasts. And they didn't laugh either, so it's okay.